Vladimir Putin prepares to take the oath of office as Russian president. In Russia, the trappings and rituals of power still have a touch of the imperial. The hand-picked guests are here to pay homage, and criticism is not welcome. Andreas Schockenhoff, the German government's commissioner on Russian affairs, found that out too. He spoke his mind and brought down Russia's wrath.
The limits on the right of assembly, the slander and heavy-handed treatment of demonstrators and their organisers, that is not in line with the declared objective of making Russia into a modern state.
Recent events in Russia have caused increasing concern in Germany. The Pussy Riot case, for instance. 2 members of the all-girl punk rock band were sentenced to prison for hooliganism. Demonstrators face arrest. Free speech seems to be getting short shrift.
It's a society that's becoming politically aware, and it's no longer willing to exchange economic advantages for passivity. And there's a regime that's basically fighting for its own survival as well.
11 years ago, then German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder forged a close friendship with Putin. He hoped it might serve as a model for closer ties between Germany and Russia. The two leaders launched the Petersburg Dialogue to promote exchange between their two societies. It was a plea for a free and open Russia.
The strong Russia that we'd all like to see needs a functioning civil society, just as it needs free media to carry out its task of informing the people and monitoring the powers that be.
11 years later, the Russian opposition has only seen those ideals move further out of reach than ever. Hope has once again given way to the age-old Russian fatalism.
I think the Germans so patiently extended this forum, hoping that with time they could break through this rigid format. But so far they haven't succeeded, not even now with the 14th dialogue.
Former Putin advisor Gleb Pavlovsky doesn't believe Putin lets the West influence him that much anymore.
Just recently, Putin said he no longer wanted to concentrate on developing relations with the European Union. He's more interested in Eurasia, in the East. I don't know if he really thinks that way, but he feels he has no need to answer any sort of criticism.
Politically, the Russian government is isolating itself from the West. Last summer, when Chancellor Angela Merkel received Putin on his first visit as new president, she failed to persuade him to change Russian policy on Syria. Russia has blocked UN sanctions on Syria in the Security Council.
Their democratic legitimacy is limited, so now they're trying to legitimize themselves through their foreign policy and present themselves as hardliners. Russia wants a voice on Syria. Russia's playing tough with the Americans and maybe even the European Union, just because the ruling elite and the president are building up their image domestically.
The anti-West hard line still appeals to many Russians, but the voices of discontent are growing louder. Those are the voices many Germans hear and want to hear. They're seeking dialogue with these independent, critical voices. But whether the Petersburg Dialogue is the right place for that is questionable.
I'm convinced that the Petersburg Dialogue in its present form is pointless. The entire format urgently needs to be reworked, especially as concerns the participants on the Russian side.
If the civil societies are to have an exchange, then with a real society and not a state-organized society, this has to be more transparent. We have to reform this dialogue. Then it'll be meaningful.
If the next Petersburg Dialogue results in a real exchange of ideas and not just listening to ready-made communiques, if there are real differences of opinion between the Russian and German delegations, then that'd be precisely the kind of spirited debate I look for in these dialogues.
But it's not clear the Kremlin is really even interested in an open and critical debate.